Good morning and welcome to Pistols Progress episode number 20. I'm Heather Smith, the creator of barrelracingtips.com, and lately I have been getting my best barrel horse back in shape for competition and bringing you along for the ride behind the scenes. So every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday I have been coming to you live here on Facebook and sharing what we're working on, as well as some tips and takeaways you can apply with your horses. So I just finished with our ride. Pistol is actually having some more lounge time in the pasture or in the arena and grazing along the edges. I really want to, a few times in the past I have had him standing there with me as I come to you after our ride, but it's so hot and I really want him to have the opportunity to just relax and move around a little bit and dry off and have that time to really decompress and be able to keep moving just a little bit immediately after our ride. So I'm standing right in front of the house facing with the arena behind me, the barn back there, because there was a little bit of a connection issue this morning, so I had to move around. But I'm excited to share with you today what we were specifically focusing on this morning, and I think you'll get a lot out of it that you'll be able to think about and apply with your horses. So the topic I wanted to speak about today was focusing on improving our riding and how it influences how our horse works in a run. Good morning, Jennifer. And I would love for you, those of you tuning in, to go ahead and share how the weekend went. So since it's Monday, this serves as our official post-weekend check-in. So I would love to know how the weekend went for you and your horses. How did your runs go? Did you ride? And really, I would love for you to tell me a win. So, and a win is anything. Like if you learned something, that was a win. So I would love to hear about it in the comments. So going back to what we were working on, as I've been doing this Pistols Progress series, I've been setting up the camera and taking little bits of footage and photos and video every time I ride, and it has been like a little bit frustrating at times because it sort of takes me out of the moment with my horse. But on the other hand, it has been so absolutely valuable because I have this fresh footage to study after every single ride, and it is so valuable. And we can't improve what doesn't get measured, right? So I have said it in my books, but I cannot recommend enough. Not only do we want videos of our runs, but go ahead like at least once a week and set your phone up on a fence post or something and just get some video clips of yourself. It doesn't even have to be working the pattern. I mean, that's great too, or working the barrels, but even just your loping circles, trotting circles, and so forth. And you will just be like amazed at the things you notice, because there's only we have to make that connection between like what we feel, like what we're feeling might feel okay, or it might be like what we're used to. But once we can actually see it, then it's a whole different ball game. I'm just gonna move the camera a little bit out of the wind, so hopefully it's just a little bit breezy, and then there'll be a little bit less wind noise. I hope that helps a little bit. Awesome, Kira. Love hearing that. So cool. So, with some of the footage I was reviewing from last week, I realized so I shortened my stirrups last week because I felt like I was just having to reach for them too much. And one thing when it comes to stirrup length is like, the shorter they are, like the more of a base of support it gives us, and the more athletic we can be essentially. But the shorter we go, it also raises the possibility for us to get kind of like popped out in a run out of our seat too much. And so as I was watching myself posting in some of the footage from last week, I was like, oh my gosh, I was just like rocketing, like really, as I was posting. And I thought, you know, I really want to get like some extension of stride, and having like posting really big is a big part of how we do that. But I thought it just seems kind of extreme. And I thought, you know, I think I'm going to go back, you know, and like I said, my stirrups are adjusted with half holes. So it's really like, I feel a difference. I'm super particular about stirrup adjustment. I feel a difference in my how I feel and how I'm able to ride depending on the thickness of the soles of my boots, depending on my socks. Like, it is that particular. So I decided to go back and bring my stirrups longer back again by like a half a hole. And then I also noticed some habits, and basically some habits and ways of going that Pistol has developed that I essentially taught him, you know, starting many years ago, that I don't think are serving us so well in an actual run. And the thing to really keep in mind is that our horses go how we ride them. And so we ride often, like, there are qualities to our posture and how we walk, like from point A to point B, that are mirrored in the way we ride, and that our horse is going to mirror in the way they go in every step and in how they use themselves in a run. So I'll never forget going to a Jane Melby clinic several years ago, and she had all the clinic participants walk the barrel pattern, like actually holding reins and going through the motions on foot as if they were running the pattern. And it was so phenomenal for me to watch, and I went through this exercise on foot too, but it was so amazing for me to watch and see people who were like kind of top heavy, and I'm guilty of this a little bit too, when I walk kind of leaning forward a little bit, but I could see there were people that like walked like kind of leaning forward, and sure enough, they're like this as they rode, and sure enough, their horses were that way too. And so it's so critical to think about what are the qualities and the characteristics that I want my horse to have in a run that isn't really quite working for us now, and how can I emphasize and how can I demonstrate and become those qualities in myself and my own riding, and even be more conscious of how I might be having those habits in general. And so, oh, I love all the hellos. Awesome, hello. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Wendy. So, hi, Jim and Charlene. Love having you guys tuning in. So, I was watching this this footage of Pistol, and I noticed how, well, for one thing, he tends to over-flex at the pole. And again, I really overemphasized this when he was younger. And, I also noticed that he seems to have like an excessive delay or amount of time, and when he strides forward into that front point of the lope with that leading front foot comes down, he really like dives down like really low, and he over flexes at the pole. And I thought, well, I can be easier with my hands and maybe just not really emphasize or ask for so much flexion. And then the other thing I'm going to be really working on myself is trying to shorten that distance, that allowing him to go down so deep and so far and so low, and kind of shorten and rock his weight back and kind of gather up and shorten up the stride and make it a little bit more dynamic and a little bit more elevated, and just bring everything back so he can get his hindquarters up underneath him and really reach deep with his hind, but not, you know, spend so much time like rocking so far forward. And I've mentioned that bend can bind. So if we're like over flexing in some area of our horse's body, it's going to affect other parts of our horse's body and basically limit it or restrict it, where we want to have this like and we have to a lot of times exaggerate to teach something. But if we're over exaggerating bend in some part of our horse's body as they advance, then you can bet that some other part of their body is going to be impacted negatively and is going to be restricted. So you can imagine, and I thought to myself, yes, when he's really low in the front, it means the hind end is going to come up and not be weighted like it should, like I want more of in a run. And if there's too much flexion up here, there's going to be less of it behind. And so all these things are, you know, these are things I've been like aware of, but I wasn't really super motivated to take some major steps to make some adjustments until I was studying all these photos and video. So it's been really eye-opening. And so I wanted to mention that in the Western riding world, so many of us just don't give a second thought to our riding, like say people who ride English and so forth, like correct equitation. But like I said, our horses go how we ride them. And it isn't just like in a run, but it is in our everyday riding as well. And we need to be consciously and intentionally and purposefully creating those qualities that we want more of in a run every single moment with our horses, and really be present and aware that in every step we are building what we want. And so, as barrel racers, we just grow up just riding our horses, and sometimes a lot of us grow up not really intentional about our riding style as a jockey or our horse's style. We just go run barrels. And sometimes it works out. Like sometimes it just so happens that our style and our horse's style just match. We have a super talented horse and everything goes well. But then in other cases, we find out that we don't match so well, or that like we need to make some adjustments to bring out the best in that horse, or completely retrain the habits that we learned as we were growing up too. So the thing to keep in mind is that if there is a certain habit that you have in a run that isn't really working for you, you do not have to continuously just kick yourself for doing the same thing over and over. It can be fixed. And again, so much of it goes back to being conscious and aware and present of how we're riding every single day in every single step. And in both of my exercises books, I actually devoted 2 chapters, which is 5 exercises in this and 5 exercises in this that are just for riders specifically. And the real game-changing one to change your habits in a run, so that old muscle memory doesn't take over, it is exercise 11. It is an absolute game changer, especially if you do not have like a whole trailer full of horses to haul to the barrel race to make like multiple runs and really work on yourself. But exercise 11 is where it's at. And so that's just something to keep in mind. Our horses will go how we ride them, and we need to be more aware of our posture, our habits, how we use our bodies, and how it impacts our horses, and how that ultimately impacts how things go in a run. And the fact that like we can very specifically and intentionally change all of that for the better. So I made a couple notes. I want to make sure I touch on everything. So yeah, that sums it up. Good morning, Lisa. Hi, Kelly. Hey, Jennifer. Awesome. Love hearing from you guys. So it's my intention for you to really move forward with what I've shared today and to think about it, but most importantly, to take action on it. So I hope these ideas have been a blessing to you. And I will be tuning in tomorrow evening, Tuesday, for Q&A Tuesday. Awesome question, Peggy. Let me see. You can do a video that demonstrates correct posture at both a trot and a lope. Well, and so here's the thing. I was thinking about this too. When I talk about correct posture, it's sort of, in a sense, relative. But when I think about correct posture, I think balance, where we are stacked, like, our body is stacked over itself. It's the whole heel, hip, shoulder thing. And then when it comes to a run, like people will say your hand should be higher, your hand should be lower, you should be doing this or that. It's all, you want to kind of keep it sort of in the middle, but I mean, without going too far to an extreme. But for a specific horse, having higher hands might be the thing. For another horse, having lower hands might be the thing. So it's really dependent on the individual. But that is something that I will certainly keep in mind, and maybe even put together a tip on it to post later this week with some of the pictures that I took today, like showing maybe some before and after stuff. So thank you so much for that suggestion. So anyway, I'm going to sign off, but I hope this has been helpful to you, gives you some things to think about, and I will be tuning in tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Central for Q&A Tuesday, so I'll see you then, and then I'll be back Wednesday morning around 8:30ish for another episode of Pistols Progress. So until then, remember, as usual, applied knowledge is power.